"This handmade gift looks so cheap," said my granddaughter. Everyone laughed. Next morning, I sold the beach house, where she'd already sent wedding invitations. Sometimes the cruelest wounds come from those we love most. I never thought my own family would see me as disposable until that moment when laughter replaced gratitude. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. My story isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming what was always mine: dignity. I spent 3 weeks crafting those small knitted dolls, my arthritic fingers working long past the point of pain. Inside one of them, nestled where no casual observer would find it, I'd hidden my grandmother's diamond, the one my late husband James had reset for our 50th anniversary, the same diamond Amber had been hinting about for months. When I arrived at my granddaughter's birthday party in her Beacon Hill townhouse, the doorman didn't recognize me. I had to show ID to enter a home I'd helped finance. That should have been my first warning. "Grandma Eleanor's here," announced my son Richard without looking up from his phone. His voice carried the same tone he used when noting the weather might turn stormy, mild inconvenience wrapped in obligation. The room smelled of expensive perfume and pretension, designer clothes, strategic networking, champagne flutes that never emptied. I clutched my small gift, wrapped in paper I'd carefully selected from the stationery store where Amber had worked during college. Back then, she'd proudly shown me her employee discount. "Time for presents." Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, clinked her glass. "Amber, darling, start with the small ones." My granddaughter's eyes locked on the tiny package in my hands. I stepped forward, offering it with a smile I'd practiced in the mirror that morning. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." She took it with manicured fingertips, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. A gift from Logan, her fiancé, who watched from across the room with the detached interest of someone evaluating a potential investment. The room hushed as she peeled back the paper. Inside the box were 2 knitted figures, painstakingly created to resemble Amber and Logan on their upcoming wedding day. Amber lifted them with 2 fingers, holding them away from her cream-colored dress as though they might stain it. "This handmade gift looks so cheap," she declared, her voice carrying across the silent room. Then she laughed, a practiced, tinkling sound. "Grandma, you know we have a registry at Neiman Marcus, right?" Logan snickered. "Perfect for the donation pile." The room erupted in laughter, Richard's too loud bark, Vanessa's tittering, Logan's friends' snorts. My cheeks burned as though I'd been slapped. I began, wanting to explain about the diamond hidden inside, the hours of work, the meaning behind it. "Mother, perhaps we should talk about getting you some help with your finances," Richard interrupted, placing his hand on my shoulder. "These little crafts show you might have too much time on your hands." I looked around the room, seeking a single sympathetic face. My grandson Thomas, standing in the corner with his camera, met my eyes with quiet apology. That small kindness nearly broke me. I left early, the sound of laughter following me out. At home, illuminated by the harsh blue light of my computer screen, I found an email from Amber with wedding vendor contracts for my signature and payment. The venue? My beloved Cape Cod beach house, the one James and I had purchased 40 years ago, the one where I'd scattered his ashes. "We've already sent the invitations," her message declared. "The designer starts renovations next month. Your old furniture will need to go." My hands trembled as I closed my laptop. For the first time in decades, I felt something calcify inside me, a hardening where softness had always lived. The morning after Amber's party, I woke to a text from Richard. "Mom, found a wonderful retirement community in Brookline. Made an appointment for us next week, just to look." I deleted it without responding. Through my bedroom window, I could see the Boston skyline, buildings glinting in the May sunshine. How many decisions had been made in those towers that altered people's lives without their consent? Was I now just another elderly statistic to be managed? My beach house keys sat on my nightstand. I grabbed them and my purse, suddenly desperate to see the property before the renovations began. The drive to Cape Cod took longer than usual. My hands gripped the steering wheel with unnecessary force, making my arthritic joints scream in protest. When I arrived, there was already a strange car in the driveway, a sleek black SUV I didn't recognize. Pushing open the front door, I heard voices from the great room. "The wall between the kitchen and dining area can definitely come down," a woman was saying. "Mrs. Thompson won't mind. She's barely here anyway." I stepped into the doorway. Amber, Vanessa, and a stylish woman with an electronic tablet were standing in my kitchen. My kitchen, where I'd taught Amber to make James's favorite clam chowder when she was 9. "Actually, I do mind," I said quietly. They spun around, Vanessa recovering first. "Eleanor, what a lovely surprise. We were just discussing some small updates for the wedding." Taking down a weight-bearing wall is hardly a small update. I set my purse on the counter. "Who approved these changes?" Amber stepped forward, all honey and concern. "Grandma, we talked about this. Remember? Last Christmas? You said we could use the house and make it perfect for the ceremony." "I said you could use it. I never agreed to demolition." "It's not demolition, it's modernization," the designer interjected, as if I were a child who couldn't grasp basic concepts. "The property has wonderful bones, but the aesthetic is rather dated." I walked to the living room window, gazing out at the Atlantic. James and I had saved for 10 years to afford this view. The designer followed, flipping through images on her tablet. "We're thinking white everywhere. Walls, furniture, fixtures. Clean, minimal, Instagram ready." On the mantel, I noticed the photo of James and me on our 40th anniversary was missing. In its place sat a mood board labeled Hamptons Chic. "Where's my photograph?" I asked. Vanessa glanced around vaguely. "Oh, we've carefully packed some of the more personal items for safekeeping during renovations." That night, after they left, I searched the house. In the garage, I found 3 boxes labeled Eleanor's Things. Inside was the photograph, along with James's books, our anniversary album, and the small knitted dolls from Amber's party, tossed in without care, the diamond still hidden inside. My phone rang. It was Richard. "Mom, about that retirement community tour." "I can't talk now, Richard. It's important we start planning for your future. The fees have quite a waiting list. Vanessa and I were thinking, since the beach house will mostly be used for family events anyway, it might make sense to transfer it to a family trust, just for tax purposes, of course." His voice was smooth, rehearsed. I recognized the tone. He used it in court when leading a witness toward a predetermined conclusion. "I need to go," I said. As I hung up, I noticed a brochure on my kitchen table that hadn't been there that morning. "Seaside Retirement Living, where independence meets assistance." Someone had circled a floor plan in red marker with a note in Vanessa's handwriting. Perfect for Mom. They were already dividing my life into pieces, I realized, and I had been letting them. "Your blood pressure is concerning." "Eleanor," Dr. Matthews said, studying my chart through wire-rimmed glasses, "it's significantly elevated since your last visit. Any unusual stress lately?" I almost laughed. Where would I begin? With my granddaughter publicly humiliating me? My son plotting to control my assets? The strangers redecorating my home without permission? "Some family tension," I said instead. Dr. Matthews removed his stethoscope. "At your age, with your history, stress isn't just uncomfortable. It's dangerous. I've seen patients your age hospitalized after family conflicts triggered cardiac events." His words hung between us. I'd survived James's death, breast cancer in my 60s, and a lifetime of challenges. Would I let my family's betrayal be what finally took me down? "I'm adjusting my approach to certain relationships," I said carefully. Later that day, I met Judith, my oldest friend, for lunch at our favorite cafe in Back Bay. Unlike me, Judith had never remarried after losing her husband. "Men are like desserts," she'd once told me. "Wonderful treats, but not necessary for survival." She listened without interruption as I detailed the past month's events, her fork suspended midway to her mouth when I described the knitted dolls incident. "And the diamond?" she finally asked. "Still inside the doll as far as I know. They didn't even examine the gift closely enough to find it." Judith set down her utensils. "Eleanor, this isn't just disrespect. They're systematically maneuvering to control your assets. Richard mentioned a family trust. Of course he did. Once your properties are in a trust he controls, you'll be receiving an allowance from your own money." She leaned forward. "Has he asked for power of attorney yet?" I nodded. 3 times since Christmas. I've been putting him off. "Thank God for that, at least." She reached for my hand. "Eleanor, I've watched you give everything to that family. Your time, your money, your emotional energy. What exactly are you getting in return?" The question struck me like a physical blow. What was I getting? Certainly not respect, not consideration, not even basic gratitude. "They're my family," I said weakly. "No, they're people taking advantage of your gentle nature. There's a difference." On my way home, I stopped at a small neighborhood bank where James and I had kept a safe deposit box for decades. Inside were birth certificates, our marriage license, and James's collection of rare coins, things the family didn't know about. That evening, my grandson Thomas called. "Grandma, are you okay? You left the party so suddenly." His concern warmed something in me that had gone cold. "I'm fine, dear. Just tired. I heard Dad talking about the beach house. Are they really planning major renovations without asking you?" So Thomas had noticed. In a family of takers, he alone seemed troubled by their behavior. They seemed to have many plans I wasn't consulted on. There was a pause. "Grandma, I found something you should see. Dad left some papers in the printer at home. Financial statements. They don't look good." I gripped the phone tighter. "What kind of statements? Investment losses? Second mortgage notices? I think they may be counting on your assets to bail them out." As we talked, I pulled up my online banking. There had been 3 attempted logins from an unrecognized device in the past week. The pieces were falling into place. This wasn't just about a wedding venue or redecorating preferences. This was about desperation and opportunism disguised as family concern. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Amber holding those knitted dolls between 2 fingers, her face twisted in disdain. The diamond inside might have paid for her entire wedding. Had she bothered to look deeper than the surface? Perhaps it was time I stopped looking deeper for redeeming qualities in them as well. The next morning, I called Marcus Cooper, an estate attorney James had introduced me to years ago. He agreed to meet me for coffee that afternoon, his voice betraying surprise at my urgency. "Bring any financial documents you can," he advised. "And Eleanor, come alone." The cafe was quiet, tucked away on a side street. Marcus had aged since I'd last seen him, more white in his beard, deeper lines around his eyes, but his handshake was still firm, his gaze direct. "James would be troubled by what's happening," he said after I'd explained the situation. "James expected better from his son," I replied. Marcus spread the documents Thomas had sent me across the table, studying them through reading glasses. "These investment losses are substantial, plus a second mortgage, credit card debt. Richard is underwater financially. And I'm the life raft." "Precisely." Marcus looked up. "Eleanor, I've seen this scenario play out dozens of times. It rarely ends well for the parent. What would you advise? Protect yourself. Immediately." He leaned forward. "Where are your assets currently?" I detailed my holdings: the Boston brownstone, the Cape Cod beach house, investment accounts, insurance policies. Marcus took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "Who has access to these accounts?" "No one but me." "Keep it that way." He set down his pen. "And the properties?" "Both are in my name alone." James insisted on that. Marcus nodded approvingly. "Smart man. Now, about this wedding. It's in September. At my beach house, without my meaningful consent." He sat back, considering. "You have options, legal options, such as, it's your property, Eleanor. You could refuse to host the wedding." I imagined the family drama, the accusations, the potential health consequences Dr. Matthews had warned about. That would create significant conflict. "Yes," Marcus agreed, "but there are other approaches, more definitive ones." That single word, definitive, resonated. For months, I'd been reacting to their maneuvers, always on the defensive. Perhaps it was time for a more decisive response. "I'm listening," I said. Later that afternoon, I visited my bank and spoke with the manager about the attempted account access. She recommended additional security measures, which I implemented immediately. At home, I found a message from Amber about final approval for the wedding flowers, an $18,000 expense she expected me to cover. Next to it was a brochure for another retirement community, this one even further from Boston, with Vanessa's neat handwriting. More affordable option? My phone rang. It was Thomas. "Grandma, I think you should know. Dad's having dinner with your financial advisor tomorrow. He mentioned something about consolidating Mom's investments for better returns." I thanked him for the information, then called Marcus back. "I've made my decision," I told him. "I'd like to explore that definitive option we discussed. Are you certain?" "Once we begin this process, I'm certain." I gazed out my window at the Boston skyline. It's time I stopped being a passenger in my own life. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept deeply and without interruption. In my dreams, James was there, nodding his approval as I finally stood my ground. "What exactly are you looking for?" Jennifer Maxwell asked, Her real estate portfolio spread across my dining room table. Her reputation as Boston's most discreet property agent had led Marcus to recommend her. A buyer who can close quickly and values privacy, I replied. For the Cape Cod property, she raised an eyebrow. Waterfront in that area typically sits on the market for... I understand the normal time frame. This situation is different. Jennifer studied my face, seeming to grasp what I wasn't explicitly stating. I know a few potential buyers who've been looking for exactly that location. Private sale could expedite things considerably. How quickly? With the right buyer and proper motivation? Perhaps 45 days. Maybe less. I nodded. Perfect. That afternoon, I drove to Cape Cod alone. The beach house stood as it always had, a weathered gray cedar shake exterior that had witnessed 4 decades of family history. Inside, I walked from room to room, mentally cataloging memories. Richard learning to swim in the cove below, Thomas building elaborate sandcastles at age 6, Amber's 16th birthday bonfire on the beach. In the master bedroom, I found more evidence of their plans: fabric swatches for new curtains, paint samples taped to the wall, a floor plan showing my personal space reconceived as the bridal suite. On the bedside table, a stack of wedding magazines had replaced my books. I sat on the porch swing James had built, watching waves crash against the shore. This had been our sanctuary. Now it felt like contested territory. My phone buzzed with a text from Richard. Mom, need to discuss important financial strategy. Dinner tomorrow? Bringing Vanessa and our advisor. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Jennifer. I'd like to proceed with listing the property. Immediately. 2 days later, Jennifer called with news. I have interested parties. A well-known tech entrepreneur and his wife. They're prepared to offer full asking price with a 40-day close if we can keep this entirely private. Tell them yes, I said without hesitation. Jennifer arranged for professional photographers to document the property the following day. I spent that evening removing personal items I couldn't bear to part with. Photo albums, James's collection of maritime books, the small wooden box containing some of his ashes. As I was leaving, Amber's wedding planner arrived, clearly startled to find me there. Mrs. Thompson, we weren't expecting you. She clutched her tablet nervously. I'm just measuring for the tent placement. No need, I said calmly. The wedding plans have changed. Changed, but Amber hasn't mentioned. She doesn't know yet. I drove home with a strange lightness in my chest. For the first time in months, I was taking action rather than simply responding to others' decisions about my life. The sensation was both foreign and familiar, like rediscovering a part of myself that had been dormant. That night, over dinner with Thomas at my Boston home, I shared my decision. You're selling the beach house? His fork paused midway to his mouth. Before the wedding? Yes. He set down his utensils. They're going to lose their minds. Probably, I agreed. But it's my property to sell. Thomas was quiet for a moment. You know what's strange, Grandma? I think I respect you more right now than I ever have, and I've always respected you. His words brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Thank you, Thomas. What about afterward? They'll be angry, especially Dad. I met his gaze steadily. I'm not responsible for managing their emotions. I've finally realized that. As Thomas helped clear the dishes, he asked the question I'd been anticipating. Is this because of what Amber said? About the gift? I considered my answer carefully. It's because of what that moment revealed, about how they see me, about what they value. I rinsed a plate, watching water spiral down the drain. Some realizations can't be unlearned, Thomas. Later, alone in my study, I received an email from Jennifer with the formal purchase offer. The closing date was set for exactly 1 week before Amber's wedding day. I signed the documents electronically, feeling the weight of decades lift from my shoulders with each click. Whatever storm was coming, I was ready to weather it. The first indication that my family had discovered my plans came at 11:23 p.m. when my phone erupted with notifications. 3 missed calls from Richard, 7 text messages from Amber, the last one in all capitals. Please tell me this isn't true! I silenced my phone and slept better than I had in months. Morning brought Richard to my doorstep, still in his running clothes, face flushed with exertion and anger. What the hell are you doing? He demanded as soon as I opened the door. Good morning to you too, Richard. I stepped aside to let him in. Coffee? I don't want coffee. I want an explanation. Jennifer Maxwell? A private sale? What were you thinking? I poured myself a cup, adding cream with deliberate slowness. I was thinking it's time to simplify my life. By selling our family beach house weeks before Amber's wedding, the wedding that's supposed to happen there, my beach house, I corrected gently. And yes, Richard ran a hand through his thinning hair. You can't do this. We've sent invitations, made deposits. The venue can't be changed now. Then I suggest you start looking for alternatives. His face darkened. This is about the birthday party, isn't it? Amber's comment? She was just joking. Mother, you're overreacting. I sipped my coffee, studying my son over the rim of the cup. This man who looked so much like James physically had none of his integrity. This isn't about one comment, Richard. This is about a pattern of behavior, yours included. What are you talking about? The retirement community brochures, the financial strategy meetings you've arranged without me, the unauthorized attempts to access my accounts. His expression flickered. Those were for your benefit. You're getting older. I'm old, not incapable. I set down my cup. And I'm certainly not senile, though I imagine that narrative might serve your purposes. Richard's facade cracked. Mom, please, I'm in trouble. The Westridge development failed. Investors are threatening lawsuits. If I don't find capital, so this is about money. I felt strangely calm, not about concern for my welfare. It's both, he insisted, but his eyes couldn't meet mine. How much do you need? His answer, a number with too many zeros, confirmed my suspicions. This wasn't about helping me. This was about saving himself. The sale closes in 5 weeks, I told him. The proceeds will go into accounts you don't have access to. You'd do this to your own family? To Amber? To me? I walked to the window, looking out at the city I'd called home for nearly 8 decades. You've left me no choice, Richard. You've shown me exactly how much respect you have for my autonomy, my wishes, and my place in this family. That's not fair. I turned to face him. Isn't it? When was the last time any of you asked what I wanted instead of telling me what I needed? His silence was answer enough. That afternoon, Amber arrived, her eyes red-rimmed, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Logan is freaking out, she said without preamble. His parents are mortified. Do you have any idea how this makes us look? The old Eleanor would have comforted her, apologized, found a way to smooth things over. But that woman was gone, replaced by someone who finally recognized her own worth. About as bad as I looked when you mocked my gift in front of everyone, I replied calmly. Amber flinched. That was different. I was just being honest. So am I. The house is being sold. The wedding needs a new venue. But why? Why would you do this to me? I studied my granddaughter, beautiful, privileged, and utterly blind to anyone's reality but her own. I'm not doing anything to you, Amber. I'm doing something for myself. As she left, storming out with theatrical indignation, I felt no satisfaction, only a quiet certainty that I was finally standing in my own truth after decades of accommodation. That evening, I received an unexpected visitor. Logan, Amber's fiancé. Mrs. Thompson, he began awkwardly. I wanted to talk to you directly, without interference. I invited him in, curious about this unprecedented solo visit. I came to apologize, he said, surprising me, for laughing at your gift. It was disrespectful. I studied him, searching for the manipulation behind the apology. Why now? He looked down at his expensive shoes. Because I'm starting to see things differently. The way everyone's reacting to your decision. It's shown me a side of this family I hadn't noticed before. For the first time, I glimpsed something genuine in this young man. A recognition, perhaps, of the world he was marrying into. Careful observation is an undervalued skill, I told him. He nodded, standing to leave. For what it's worth, Mrs. Thompson, I think I understand why you're doing this. After he left, I called Marcus to confirm the sale was proceeding as planned. Whatever emotional hurricanes might be brewing in my family, my course was set. 3 weeks before the scheduled closing date, Jennifer Maxwell called with unexpected news. The buyers want to accelerate the timeline. They're offering an additional $50,000 if we can close in 10 days. I hesitated only briefly. Tell them yes. This development would place the sale completion 3 weeks before Amber's wedding date, creating an even more urgent crisis. I understood the potential fallout, but proceeded anyway. That evening, I invited Thomas to dinner at my Boston home, knowing I needed one ally in the family chaos that would surely follow. The sale is happening sooner, I told him over roast chicken, his favorite since childhood. Next week, he set down his fork. That's decisive. It feels right. I studied my grandson's face. You're the only one I've told. Why me? Because you're the only one who sees me as a person rather than a resource. Thomas pushed his glasses up his nose, a gesture so reminiscent of James that my heart tightened. They're planning an intervention, you know. Dad, Mom, Amber, they think you're having some kind of breakdown. I almost laughed. Of course they do. It's easier to believe I'm mentally compromised than to accept I'm making conscious choices they don't like. What will you do? I considered the question. Stand my ground. Later that night, after Thomas left, I received a text from Richard. Family dinner tomorrow, 7 p.m. My house. Important matters to discuss. The trap was being laid. I replied with a simple, I'll be there, then called Marcus. They're planning an intervention, I told him. Likely to build a case that I'm not competent to manage my affairs. Are you sure you want to attend? His concern was evident. Absolutely. Running would only strengthen their narrative. The following evening, I dressed with particular care, a tailored navy suit James had always admired, pearl earrings, light makeup. The woman in the mirror looked resolute, clear-eyed, not remotely confused or incompetent. Richard's Wellesley home was illuminated like a stage set when I arrived. Through the window, I could see them assembled. Richard pacing nervously, Vanessa arranging food no one would eat, Amber dabbing at her eyes with theatrical precision. Only Thomas, standing slightly apart, seemed uncomfortable with the performance. I rang the doorbell. Richard opened it, his welcoming smile not reaching his eyes. Mom, thank you for coming. We've been so worried. The living room fell silent as I entered. On the coffee table lay printouts of retirement communities, elder law attorneys' business cards, and, most tellingly, blank power of attorney documents. Eleanor, Vanessa stepped forward, her voice dripping with manufactured concern. We're here because we love you. Are you? I set my purse down calmly. How interesting. Richard cleared his throat. Mom, we're concerned about your recent decisions. They seem impulsive, potentially self-destructive. You mean selling my own property? Exactly, Amber interjected. 3 weeks before my wedding. It's cruel, and it makes no sense. I surveyed the room. These people who claim to love me while systematically dismissing my agency. I disagree. It makes perfect sense to remove myself from situations where I'm not respected. Richard exchanged glances with Vanessa. Mom, stress and age can affect judgment. We're just suggesting some protections. For whom, Richard? Me or your financial interests? The room went still. Thomas, from his corner position, couldn't suppress a small smile. I know about the failed development, I continued. The second mortgage, the credit card debt. I know you've been trying to access my accounts. Richard's face drained of color. Who told you? Does it matter? What matters is that you thought you could manipulate me instead of simply asking for help. Vanessa stepped forward. Eleanor, you're clearly confused. I've never been clearer, I interrupted. The house will be sold next week. The proceeds will remain under my control. And this performance you've arranged, it only confirms I've made the right decision. I stood, gathering my purse. I've scheduled appointments with my doctor and my attorney tomorrow. Both will document my competency in case any of you are considering legal challenges. As I walked to the door, Amber called after me, her voice breaking. What about my wedding? I turned back one last time. What about my dignity? The silence that followed me out was more satisfying than any further argument could have been. The day of the closing arrived with perfect late summer weather. Clear skies, gentle breeze, the kind of day that had always made the beach house feel like heaven on earth. I signed the final papers in Marcus's office, his presence providing both legal security and moral support. Congratulations, he said as I completed the last signature. The wire transfer will be complete by end of day. I felt no triumph, only a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. 40 years of memories now belonged to someone else, but my future remained firmly in my own hands. As we left his office, Marcus hesitated. Eleanor, have you given any thought to where you'll live long-term? I have. Actually, I smiled at his surprised expression. I'm not without plans, Marcus. That evening, Thomas came for dinner at my Boston home. I handed him an envelope over dessert. What's this? He asked, opening it to find a check with his name. A gift for your photography business. His eyes widened at the amount. Grandma, this is too much. I can't. You can and you will. I reached for his hand. James always said you had an artist's eye. He would have wanted to support your passion. Thomas blinked rapidly. Does Dad know about this? No, and it's not his business. I sipped my tea. You're the only one who saw me. Thomas, the only one who bothered to look beneath the surface. Later that night, as expected, my phone exploded with notifications. The family grapevine had clearly spread news of the completed sale. Richard's voicemail was coldly professional. Mother, I'm disappointed you've proceeded with this reckless action. We need to discuss damage control immediately. Vanessa's message dripped with martyrdom. Eleanor, I hope you realize what you've done to this family. Amber is absolutely devastated. Amber herself sent 16 increasingly hysterical text messages, culminating in, "My life is ruined and it's your fault." I silenced my phone and slept peacefully. The following morning, I met with a real estate agent. Not Jennifer this time, but a woman specializing in properties for active seniors. We toured 3 condominiums in upscale buildings, all with security, amenities, and proximity to cultural attractions I'd long neglected. "This one has the best views," she said, as we stood in a corner unit on the 15th floor of a building in Cambridge, overlooking the Charles River. "And the security is exceptional, private elevator access only." I studied the space, open, light-filled, completely unlike my current home with its dark wood and historical constraints. "It's perfect." By afternoon, I'd made an offer. By evening,